on this episode of Plumbing with Red Bear, we have a bathroom sink. And the faucet here is pretty old. It's about, I think this was put in like the mid-90s, so what, 30 some odd years old. And the cold water side works just fine. The hot water works, but it's very hard to turn. And it's also very easy to think you turned it off all the way, but you didn't. I've come up before after somebody else was in the bathroom and it was on a little bit. So this faucet's on its way out. And then my mom, who's always obsessing with how dirty it looks and complaining that she can't clean it, it's not dirt, it's like rust and corrosion that's working its way from the inside out. Like, see, there's a very small gap behind the faucet. It's very hard to try to clean back there. And then, what was it, last night before, she had her little metal nail file out, trying to chip away at the like gunk and stuff. Well, guess what? This faucet, at least this part of it, was only made out of all that gunk, so now she's got some nice big holes in it. Nothing's leaking, but you know, sooner than later this thing's got to get replaced. Like probably tomorrow, actually. Today, what I'm going to do, it's going to be a bunch of clips smashed together, but today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down under the sink and try to turn off the hot and cold water. There are shut-off valves, but they probably haven't been touched in many years. And I'm a little worried that either A, they won't turn at all, B, they turn off but leak, C, they turn off but then you open up the faucet up here and there's still water flowing, or D, you try to turn them off and the valve breaks off. I'm not going to let D happen because I'm going to be very careful turning the valve. If I can't turn it, I can't turn it. And then it'll be plumber time, probably. Yeah, real plumber. But I'm hoping, I think I have had these off once. I don't remember when. We've been living here about 10 years or so. But I think I've turned them off and on just to make sure that they worked at least once. So I think they'll be okay. I think I'll luck out. But you never know. So, the bathroom tour. There's the sink. You can't really... I gotta clean out underneath there because it's full of crap. Typical. There's ye old toilet. You know it's old because the tank and the bowl isn't mounted together like pretty much every other toilet ever. There's actually, the tank is actually bolted to the wall and there's a elbow pipe that attaches it to the bowl. It's old-fashioned design. It's probably from 20s or 30s maybe. Not much newer. Well, it's not. If it was super old, the tank would be way up near the ceiling with a chain. That's like really old style. But this is still pretty old. And yes, that's a massive tank, and each flush is at least 5 gallons of water. So we go by the phrase that was coined back in the 70s: if it's yellow, leave it mellow, brown, flush it down. Don't waste 5 gallons of water for a little bit of yellow water, basically. And panning around, we got a nice window. There's the bathtub. That faucet, last year I tried to replace and could not because of the way the water was hooked up to the back. Long story short, we had to have a plumber do it. And that faucet was pretty much the same problem as this one, with the metal was all corroding out from the inside out. And like on the left side near the hot, it was the hot both times. On the left side by the hot, the metal was actually all kind of missing underneath the hot valve. and then it started getting to the point where it would drip even though you tried to close it all the way. So that's when we knew we had to do it, before it just like all blew out or anything. So that's all new now. This is old-fashioned clawfoot tub. I know some people like these tubs. I like it. It's very simple. It works. Only downside is you have to have 3 shower curtains to go all the way around. And yeah, okay. That's that. Okay, welcome back. I think you guys can see. Hopefully there's enough light. Here's the shutoff valves. Managed to clean all the crap out underneath for the most part. There's still some gooey crap and whatnot underneath, but I'm not going to deal with it. Anywho, hot. I'm going to have to move the camera to the other corner for cold. But I'm pretty hopeful because these shutoff valves look newer than I was expecting. These are kind of the newer style shutoff valves, the oval shaped ones. I was worried that they were going to be really old round ones that might have even been painted or something, but they're not that bad. So I'm pretty hopeful that these are going to be okay. We're going to go with hot first, because I guess that's easier to shut off from downstairs if there is a problem. Let's try it. Oh, that's turning. I didn't even have to break it. There's a couple little drips. Let's see if it continues. It's giving me a few drips here. I'm hoping it stops. Sometimes they'll drip a little bit when you turn them, but then it's okay afterwards. But if it doesn't stop. The good news is these shutoff valves are threaded onto the pipe here. It's not. I figured it would be a sweat connection where you have to, solder on something. It's not. It's threaded. So I should be able to take a wrench to it and replace it if I have to. Of course, I have to turn off the water from the cellar, which is a pain in the ass, but it's not impossible. I'm trying to figure out if it's still dripping. I don't think it is. I think it's okay. Of course, ideally, you wouldn't feel anything else coming out. There's a little drop every once in a while. I don't like that. Now I could try to take a wrench on this part here and try to make that a little bit tighter, but that could just break it more. The good news is it does turn off the water at the faucet completely. But I don't like that there's even just a little tiny drip coming from this. Because, it's going to have to be turned off for a while, because the plan is that I turn the valve off, unhook these, unhook the drain, and unhook a couple clips if there's any holding the sink to the cabinet, and then pull up the whole sink and flip it over, because that's really the only way to get behind that faucet up there. I don't know if any of you guys are skinny enough to fit under this tiny little sink, but I know I'm not. So it's going to have to be turned off for a while, most of a day. So if this thing is still leaking, that's, even if it's just a little drip here and there, I don't like it. I don't think I trust it. It's just a little tiny drip. Again, I can get a wrench on this part and try to tighten it. Even run the risk of making it worse. I don't know. Let's stop messing with that one for a little while. Let's try the cold. Okay, this is the cold. too hard to turn. Let's test it up top. Okay, that turned it off all the way. This one is not dripping at all. That's the most important one, the cold. The hot, I can at least turn off at the hot water heater, and the whole house will still have cold water. If the cold was dripping, the only other option in this house, unfortunately, would be to turn off the main water valve down cellar that turns off the cold water supply, so all the water supply to the entire house. And this is a two-family house. So thankfully, the cold looks like I don't have to worry about it at all. Hot, you know what? I don't feel anything there. I think the hot's okay too. It's a little scary because it does drip a little bit when you turn it, but once it's off for a little bit, it's okay. But if this is leaking, it's very, very slow. But like I said, even very, very slow is a problem because it's going to be off for a little while. I think it stopped. Yeah, I don't feel a drip anymore. And hopefully the next, now I'm going to turn it back on because I'm not actually doing the faucet today. I'm just prepping. Now I'm going to actually turn it back on. We'll see after I turn it back on if it leaks. And then tomorrow when I actually do the faucet, I got to turn it off again and leave it off for a while. So I think it's okay. It's a little scary, but it's okay. But once again, I can at least turn that hot water off without turning off the cold for the whole house. It would just be hot that we would be missing. It would be for the whole house because there's only one hot water heater, even though it's a two-family house. It's just after the flooding of Hurricane Irene wiped out the hot water heaters that we had. That's what we ended up with. We got fleeced pretty good by a plumber that was going around right after the flooding. He knew he could charge whatever he wanted. So there's 3 holes for the faucet. It's left and right for hot and cold, and then the middle one is for the stopper thing. That makes sense. Which means I'm going to have to figure out how to disconnect that stopper thing. I don't think it'll be too hard, but yeah, I think you just squeeze it with a pair of pliers. But yeah, I think this isn't leaking anymore. Let's turn it back on. I could hear it hiss a tiny bit while I was turning it here and there. That's where the drops came out. But now that it's on, yeah, so when you're turning it, it drips a tiny bit, but after it's either all the way on or all the way off, then it's fine. Which is hashtag good enough. It's the cold. No, I didn't move the camera, but the cold doesn't drip at all, which is good. Alright, so I think I'm going to say we're good to go on that front. I'm a little worried, but you know, worst case scenario, I have to run back to Home Depot and get one of these, but thankfully, like I said before, it threads off with a wrench. It's not sweated on with a torch, which is good because I don't have a torch. I know how to sweat pipes, but I don't have a torch. So also what I wanted to do, what I was planning to do originally, was disconnect both of these, this is called tubing, these pipes that go from the shut-off valve to the faucet. I was going to disconnect both of these down here. Well, that's still the plan, and pull the little sink up. But I was hoping to replace this tubing with these flexible hoses that are just a lot easier to tighten on and stuff. But I don't know if they come this long. I was hoping these shutoff valves, instead of being way down by the very bottom like they are, I was hoping they'd be like maybe halfway up or so. But they're not. So I'm probably going to have to reuse this tubing, which is a little worrying because it's a bit green down there. I'm still, when I go to Home Depot, I'm going to take the old faucet so that I get a new one with the connections exactly the way I need them to be, and I'm going to take this tubing. I mean, I can see if they make the flexible ones this long, but I have a feeling they don't. I don't think they're really that long. I'm just gonna have to reuse it. I don't like those things. Because then there's those little round, like, I don't know if you call them washers or what, that's inside the connection that you gotta worry about getting it on right. I hate having to deal with those. And then, you probably, I was going to turn the camera up, but I don't think there's the bottom of the sink, there's the drain. That's been replaced before, so that's going to be super easy. I might not even need the channel locks. They might just be hand tight. You just got to take the P-trap off. Put a bucket under it and take the P-trap off. And since this is such an old house, this is kind of neat that you don't see anymore. That's the drain pipe. It comes out on the side here, and it goes behind the elbow for the toilet, and then it finally goes into the wall back there, and there's the supply for the toilet. That is something that you just don't see anymore, and it's kind of neat. Nowadays, with new plumbing, everything, all the pipes have to be inside a wall. You gotta have a wet wall and all that. Back then, it didn't matter. And I kind of like the idea of the pipes not in the wall, to be honest. I would like them even more not in the wall, because then when there's a problem, it's easier to fix. But anyway, so that's my project I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm relatively confident in that hot water shutoff valve, and worst comes to worst, I can turn off the water down cellar and then replace the valve, considering that it threads on with a wrench. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Now, as far as filming, there's not really much I can do. Maybe once I disconnect stuff and pull up the sink and flip it over, I'm just going to flip the sink over and put it pretty much right back where it is, but the other way around maybe. Well, I don't know. The faucet's going to be in the way, though. That's going to be a little tricky. Maybe I'll have it loose and flip it around so that I can have the pipe sticking out the front of the cabinet, so I can detach stuff. Yeah, I'll figure it out. But anyway, that's the plan. And I guess I'll see you then. Later.